Hey y'all, Fred here. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know what today is? Today is cutting day. We're going to do our redneck cut test on this 𝗏+ knife. That is the name of this knife. You can maybe see it in the pivot here. This is a $35 knife that you can buy on Amazon. This knife, I just did a review on it, by the way. I'll put the review up here in the corner. I'll also put it down in the comments. This is probably the most commented knife review that I have done yet. Everybody, whether you loved it or hated it, thought this is a truly unique and different kind of knife. And I'm going to actually show you a new trick today that makes it even more unique and cool than just this lock mechanism. This knife was donated to the channel. Let me back that up. Sorry, John. This knife was loaned to the channel. He wants it back by John Emerson, aka the Tri-Fire. You will see him down in the comments. Thanks, John, so much for sharing this very cool and unique knife with us. This is part of his collection. He loaned several to the channel. I can't quite get it, John. I'm almost there. We're going to do it in a minute. I don't want to give away the trick too early. The really unique thing about this knife is its lock mechanism. So this has what's called a DLM, which is a dynamic lock mechanism. I didn't know that when I did the original video, and thanks to all of you guys who chimed into the comments to tell me what this was. Apparently this has been used on a couple of different knives, different brands of knives. So the 𝗏+ actually is a line of knives, and they have several different versions. I don't think you can get the black one anymore, but they do have a 𝗓𝗏𝗧 one, and apparently they have an even newer one, a 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗀. I'll mention that in just a minute. This lock is basically like an internal back lock almost. So if you can see this bar right here, let me get my fancy little pointer. This bar right here moves up and down when you move the thumb stud up and down. Notice they call it an axis lock, so they really missed the boat on this in the listing. They call it an axis lock. Clearly this is not an axis lock. It moves up and down, has a totally different mechanism. There are no omega springs. It's basically, this is like a lock back. So this bar raises up or down when you move these tabs up or down, and that bar drops down into the blade of the tang of the blade there, and when you push up, it lifts up that lock bar like a back lock might do, except in reverse, I guess, here, and it releases the knife, okay? So DLM, dynamic lock mechanism, Elite Tactical did it on a few of their knives. The problem is the original design has kind of a fatal engineering design flaw that makes it such that it's not, the interfaces are not strong enough, they're not straight enough. It kind of wears out that lock after a while, it rounds it off, so that if you do a hard spine whack on this knife, it will break the lock out. Now, let me say that John has told me that, you know, in a couple of years of owning and using this knife, it has never disengaged the lock on him. So unless you're actually doing a real spine whack, which is not a maneuver you should ever be doing with a knife in the real world anyhow, you're not going to have any problems with it. But as I mentioned, they've got a new version, an updated version of this that is a 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗀. One of the other users, who someway1R1U, thank you very much, said there's a new one. The 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗀 model has an updated lock mechanism that once it's locked out, you can push the button down to actually fully lock it into place so that it will not pop out on a spine whack. So if this is something you're interested in checking out because you just love new and interesting and unique kind of lock mechanisms, but you don't want a knife that has the potential to fail on a spine whack, take a look at that brand new one. Now let's talk about the cooler trick that John showed me that I totally missed from the first review that I did, which is this is pretty darn fidgety like this. So you got to get the timing right. And you know, this is still a new knife to me, so I don't quite have it fully right. You got to get the right amount of pressure on the back of that knife. But I mean, you can flip this knife faster than any other knife that I have ever seen, in and out. Now, you just got to get the timing right. You can see I can get into a rhythm and a pattern, and I'm talking over this because I want you to see that I'm not speeding up the video in some way to, you know, try to fake it out. At any rate, it takes a little practice, but that's pretty cool. That makes this knife even more fidgety and fun. Just got to get a little used to it. All right, let's talk about the knife itself. Again, I've got a review down below. You can buy variations of these on Amazon. They do have some micarta versions. The black G10 doesn't seem to be available anymore. This is a D2 blade with a partial flat grind. I will tell you, this is actually a really good quality D2. So I did reprofile this blade for John. It had gotten dull on him after a couple of years, and I said, listen, I got, you know, the Pro Work Sharp Precision Adjust Sharpening System. Let me throw it on that, and I will reprofile it down to 18. I'm going to tell you what, on the lowest grip, the 220 paddle on the Work Sharp, it took a while to get through this D2 steel to reprofile this edge. And then as I was getting to the very end of the sharpening, man, the burr was like falling off in hair-like structures as I got to, you know, the final grits of really getting this thing dialed in. So all of that to simply say, I'm pretty sure this is a very good quality D2. They say, you know, 60, I think 60 to 62 is what they rate theirs as, what's on the listing for these knives. I'm going to say it's every bit of that. So lots of very interesting things with this knife. Way more fidgety than I thought. It's not bad in terms of ergonomics. Let's talk about the size. I haven't even done the size yet. So it's 7 3/4 inches long, 3 1/4 inches cutting length. It's right at 100 thousandths. So it's fairly thin, slicey blade there. 20 thousandths behind the edge, but that's because you can see it's only a partial flat. So even with the reprofiled blade, still a little thicker out here, but I'll tell you, you'll see in just a minute, it is now quite slicey with that new 18 degree on there. Here we are in between the PM2 and the Para 3. I'm trying to get the rear ends of these things. You can see basically it falls right in between those. So a beautiful medium, not even a medium, this is a full-blown medium-sized knife. It definitely feels full in the hand. I mean, you're not like lacking for knife on this thing. Again, right in between the Vision and the Pyrite Light. This is the regular size Pyrite Light, obviously. So maybe it is a medium knife. The handle, just a little over, well, a little over ½ inch thick. Definitely fills the hand out. Nice kind of contoured G10 scales. 4.41 ounces is the weight on this thing. This is really a, you know, a nice fidgety all day. If I could just get that process down, all day work knife, you know. The lock mechanism and this fidgetiness of this thing is what makes this knife super cool. Ergonomically, very solid. Again, like I said, Contour G10 fills the hand. The pocket clip is actually nice and small on this thing. They really hit a home run with this pocket clip. Let me see if, well, here's the Civivi Vision FG. It's about the same length, but that's the titanium aftermarket pocket clip. Here's a, you can see that's a little bit longer on the Pyrite Light. If I put it up against some Civivis, or I had a Civivi here. Let me pull out this Sencut real quick. This is another knife that John loaned us. We're doing tests on that today as well. You can see the big difference in the length in these two clips here. So what I was trying to point out is the clip is nice and small on this thing. So I feel like that's not going to be an issue where a lot of pocket clips are. There's minimal jimping on the blade. There's a little bit of a thumb ramp back here. You're pretty much going to live back here in this position. I might take a little test run with the cardboard as using this as a trigger. I'm willing to bet John probably does. He's a little bit crazier than I am. Choke back. This is where you're going to live all day long. Pinch grip is okay. You've got this reverse tanto blade. Nice and easy to do in your draw cuts. You don't have to lift your hand very much to do that, which is a large part of what I do. I'm going to call this a pretty good medium duty work knife. You know, it could certainly handle heavy duty work with this good D2 steel. If it's just the backlock, you just have to be real careful about the backlock. But again, in 2+ years of owning this knife, John said this knife has never failed him. This is one of his favorites. He loves it and carries it all the time. So, man, all around, this is a pretty interesting and very cool knife, and certainly a little more fidgety than I realized when I did the initial review. I mean, I could see myself making a lot of people crazy by just doing this all day long. Like if I sat on the sofa with my wife and watched some movies or something, sitting here doing this, she would throw me out of the house, don't you think? All right, well, let's see. Anyhow, oh, sharpness. Didn't even do our sharpness. Again, I reprofiled this edge, so we're starting out at a nice laser beam sharp yeehaw for that. 10 out of 10 on the redneck rating scale. So all that being said, let's just get to it. Let's get over to the cutting table, do some cutting. All right, here we go. As always, we've got about 432 square inches of cardboard. I always wonder if I'm using 4 smaller pieces. It feels like I'm actually doing more cuts. There's probably somebody out there, some kind of math major somewhere, who can figure out the geometry of how many cuts you're making, small versus large pieces. At any rate, this thing, I've kept it at normal speed through this first piece, just so you can see how easy and cleanly this passes through that cardboard. Hot knife through butter, just like always. Especially after having sharpened it down to an 18 degree, this thing slices through this cardboard like nobody's business. You know, the big question is it doing any damage to the edge of the blade? But as far as tearing down cardboard boxes, this feels really good. It feels good in the hand too. It actually kind of fills out the hand. Those contoured scales are feeling really good, despite the fact that I have gloves on. It doesn't matter what angle I cut the cardboard at, you know, with the grain, against the grain, what have you. Doesn't matter. It just tears right through everything. No problem at all. All right, now let's see. The most important piece is, do we do any damage to the edge of the blade here? That's what I really want to see. Just checking it all out. It feels pretty good. Let's try it out on the paper. Ooh, and that's nice. Very smooth. So, you know, if y'all have ever done any paper cutting test, you'll know when you feel it, when that knife goes through there, when you have a really sharp blade. This one's pretty shocking. A 10 out of a 10. That's a good start. You know, this is a $35 knife. Now, I told you, when I sharpened it, it felt like a really good D2 steel. So we're going to find out. This is just a little extra cutting. This reverse tanto blade gives you that nice low tip, easy for those draw cuts on there. So just checking that out a little bit. Now we're looking to see how easily it'll push through this hose. Part of the problem that I have here is not that it won't go through the hose easily, it's that there's not much belly to this. So I'll show you here in just a second. When I cut this third piece, I almost need to raise this hose up because it's just hard to get that knife all the way down on the table. So now I just chop up the little bits. Now I can use what little belly there is very easily to pop through these. So this just helps me also see sharpness. How easy does it pop through those little rubber pieces? You could imagine those also might be some kind of plastic cable ties that you're cutting off or something like that. Usually the hose doesn't do too much damage to the blade. We're still at a 10 when we started. So let's see how well it held up this time. And so far, so good. I'm trying to go slow all the way out to the tip of that blade. It's hard sometimes to, when that paper gets floppy out there at the end, when you're at the end of the cut. So I'm really just trying to check the tip out. And as you can see, when I'm chopping little chunks of paper like that, that usually is a good sign. So it's hard. You know, can I call this a 10? Probably. I'm giving it a 9.9, and I don't even know why, other than it just doesn't seem like, how could it possibly still be at a 10 after those? Now, the sisal rope here is always the edge killer. I'm looking to see how easy does it pop through that rope, and you can see it is popping through very easy and cleanly. Some of the best rope cutting action that I've had on a knife yet. As a matter of fact, I think I actually go past 10 cuts on this just because I'm almost out of rope in this piece that I'm cutting here. But again, just looking for how easy and cleanly this pops right through that sisal rope. That's not easy rope, y'all, if you ever tried to cut it. Pretty shocking. The performance is really good. Now let's see if we did any damage to the edge. And look at that, a little fast. Maybe I'll slow it down a little bit. Really checking the tip. That was a good pass. You could see it got all the way out to the tip of the blade. Still clean as can be. It just refuses to die, the edge on this. So again, this is a good, maybe it's just the luck of the draw, a good heat treat on this D2 right here. And again, I knew that when I was checking it, when I was sharpening it. 9.99. Really, just, I don't know why. I just don't feel like I could call it a 10 after having cut that stuff. No knife has ever been a 10. One knife has come that close. We'll talk about that in a minute. In the wood, look at this thing. It wants to just dig into the wood, but I'm also looking for ergonomics here as well. That's an important piece. As far as a saber grip, absolutely comfortable. No issues there. Now I'm going to go to the hammer grip. Almost feel like I can generate a little bit more power, a little stronger cut right there. And you can see it is digging into that wood really nicely. And again, that's just a function of having a good 18-degree edge on there as well. But ergonomically feels really, really good in the hand. It actually fills out the hand nicely with those contoured scales. Pocket clips, not an issue. This thing is feeling good all the way through. So let's grab a piece of paper. See, did we do anything, any damage yet? And look at that, y'all. It's just sliding right through there from the bottom to the top. This is just me being stupid. But it's clean. There's nothing on this blade. I'm just not holding the paper stiffly. You know, by the time you get to the edge of the paper, it's all floppy. It's hard to pass a knife through there. Again, just, it is what it is. It's a 9.9 plus. I think I knocked it down to a 9 because maybe it's not quite laser-like it was before. So let's get on to some stropping here. Got my new strop. Got some 16 micron CBN diamond emulsion on the brown side here. That's kind of the rough side of the leather. I use that for my first few passes just to try to, you know, it's almost like going from a lower grit to a higher grit on your sharpening. And then 10 passes on each side on the green side, which is 6 microns on each side. This is, we'll look at the numbers here in a minute. This has been a very interesting and pleasant surprise, more than I was expecting here. And of course, we didn't really, I mean, we were at a 9 plus at the end of the test, so it's not going to take much to drop it back to a 10, right? That's, it's not easy to not hard to understand why. It's not a big deal. To be able to strop it from a 9 to a 10, no problem. On the D2, takes a little bit more, maybe, I don't know, but we're at a 10. So, man, let's take a look at the overall numbers on this thing and see what kind of performance we got out of this knife here. As always, I know it's hard, if not impossible, to read this on a small screen, so I'll just go through the numbers pretty quickly. I think you've already got the picture of what this knife is about and what it can do. This is the Win Plus knife in D2 steel. They said it was a 58 to 60 on the HRC. I'm going to say it was every bit of 60 plus. May just be luck of the draw. It was just a really good batch of heat-treated steel. Knife Steel Nerds ranks D2 as a 5 on their scale, which is pretty good. It's basically the same as LMAX as far as edge retention goes. It did sharpen the knife, and that always makes a big difference. Every knife that I've sharpened for testing always performs really well in the test. I put it down to an 18-degree edge. We started at a 10 out of 10 on the sharpness, cut through 432 square inches of cardboard, and it was still a 10 on the scale after sharpening it. And there was only, it looks like maybe 2 other knives that did that well. And that was the Winter Blade Factor in M390. It was sharpened. And then the 𝗬𝗓𝘂𝗁 did pretty good, the 𝗬𝗂𝘂𝘁. It was a 9 or a 10. So we then did our normal hose cuts, 3 cuts through the hose, still a 9.9. And now we're talking only 1 other knife. Now it's just it, and the Winter Blade Factor has held that well. I did 13 rope cuts just because I was almost out of that piece of rope, and it was just cutting so cleanly. Some of the best rope cutting performance of any knife that I have tested. After the rope, it was still a 9.9, and that's where it really begins to separate itself from most of the others there. After the wood cutting, still a 9.9. Now, the last cut test I did was the Sencut Cybrix, and it was a 9 CR18, and that was still at a 9 after all of the tests, and that was really shocking to me. The 𝗪𝘂𝘁𝗪 replica was still at a 9 after all of our cut tests, but only the Winter Blade Factor was still somewhere around 9 to 10 still on the scale. So basically, this is probably the second best knife through all of my tests so far. Stropped it back 17 strokes per side.
easily back to a 10 because we weren't far off of that. So I'm going to say this is tied for first place with the winter blade factor for overall performance in these cut tests. And that was an M390 blade compared to this D2. I think what this proves, a couple of things. One is that this knife had a really good heat treat on it. Again, maybe that was just luck of the draw. This is a $35 knife compared to a $400+ knife in the winter blade factor, right? So it's not really a fair comparison, you wouldn't think. Certainly not based on price. And this knife doesn't even have like the best geometry. It's not a fat blade, but it's only a partial flat grind, so it thickens up pretty quickly into there, into the middle of the knife. So it's not even like a super thin slicey like the winter blade factor or the 𝗬𝗪𝗀. But again, all that being said, some of the best rope cutting that I've had. You can see, you saw how easily it just popped right through that sisal rope, really nice. You could feel a little bit of the thickness, that wedge in the blade there as you're cutting through the cardboard. It didn't slow you down much. You could just feel the difference that this is a thicker bladed knife, about halfway up. Yeah, not a big deal, and it certainly didn't touch the edge on it. The hose was a good cut, but what I realized was it's not a big sweeping belly on this knife. So if I'd have raised that hose up on a board or something, I think it would have passed through even more easily. But that's okay. It is what it is. There's value to not having a big belly, to having a nice big straight portion of the knife. That means you don't slide out of cuts on long cuts like cardboard as well. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. No snags developed in this blade edge at any point in this test, and that is a very, very rare thing. Ergonomically, it was really good, surprisingly good. I'm going to give this has better ergonomics, of course, than even the winter blade factor, which is more of kind of a flat, square, blocky shape in the handle. It's not really designed to be ergonomically superior. But this knife definitely fills the hand. Those contoured G10 scales really fill out the hand nicely. That pocket clip is small, it's short, it's kind of unobtrusive. You don't really feel it. So fantastic on the ergos on this thing. I mean, it is what it is. Outstanding edge retention on this steel. So you've got to boil it down to, this is what a really good, well heat-treated D2 steel can do in terms of really holding an edge for a good long time through just about anything that you're going to throw at it. Overall, I got to rate this thing a 10 on the overall test ratings. It just really exceeded my expectations by a pretty wide margin. I can now understand why John absolutely loves this knife. He told me from the beginning, I really love this knife, and he has some other knives that are nice. He had the 𝗪𝗂𝘁𝗁𝗪 that we tested. He also had the 𝗧𝗲𝘂𝗵𝗴 Backlash, and those are pretty cool knives. But this one, I couldn't understand. Well, you've got these others. Why do you love this $35 knife? Well, now I understand why you love this $35 knife. So in terms of overall value, I mean, this thing blows the doors off of most other. I can't even think of another $35 knife out there that's going to hang with this in terms of comfort and edge retention. It does have the issue with the lock on it, so you got to be aware of that. But John said in 2 years of owning it, it's never been an issue for him ever. So there you go. It's also super fidgety, as you saw from the front of the end of this video. So overall, fantastic knife. Certainly gets my highest recommendation in terms of how it performed in the cut test today. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. If you'd like to see me do anything different, as always, I always love hearing from you guys, and any ideas or suggestions you have, let me know. Otherwise, if you would, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. We do have our contest coming up here shortly. Going to give away a bunch of knives that'll go out to subscribers who comment on a video. I'll let you know about that in the next week or so. Otherwise, look forward to hearing from you. Throw your boy a thumbs up if you like this kind of content. It always helps me with the algorithms. Otherwise, y'all have a great day. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.